To think that it's been a year ever since we've been in the pandemic, a lot has happened since then, like the Black Lives Matter movement, Biden becoming president, vaccines rolling out, and much more. As nice as it would be to recap all that has occurred, I want to talk to you about the response and approach the US had towards COVID 19. When it came to other countries around the world, some have already enforced proper quarantine, made sure face masks were worn without hesitation, made sure countries were locked down. But we have to realize on our side the amount of healthcare workers and resources being depleted with the prolonging action of both the people and administration. Most Americans were also losing jobs, and businesses had to shut down because they had a lack of customers. Now, don't get me wrong, other countries were suffering the same thing too, but we're highlighting the fact that how the US approached this. The response to COVID 19 by the US could have been handled better. Hi, my name is John Philip DeRoy. I will be talking about the causes, effects, and the solutions we could have taken to alleviate and reduce the severity of the effects the pandemic laid upon the US. Now, starting with the first cause, delayed action due to the downplay of the pandemic from the Trump administration. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to pin this on Trump alone, okay? I'm not even trying to pin him at all. I'm trying to focus on how his administration and Biden's administration viewed they should take the pandemic. Now, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation, under the Trump administration, they chose to leave the states as the main shot callers in this case, and how they should handle the COVID 19 pandemic, while the federal government was their backup. Whereas Biden's administration saw that as the opposite, where the federal government should be the one calling the shots while the states follow. The next thing we have to take account for is the amount of deaths and cases or infection cases that were coming in, especially according to the New York Times around about September 15th to about January 8th. There was a huge surge of cases, and we have to realize the entire amount of cases that have been recorded since then, along with deaths. Now, according to New York Times again, as of March 14, 2021, 29.4 million cases and currently 534,476 deaths have been recorded. We also have to take into account that the workloads of healthcare workers was drastically increased because of the lack of action taken immediately. The effects of that were unemployment rates were at its peak during April, according to research released by the Federation of American Scientists, stating specifically part-time workers experienced typical higher unemployment in April 2020, specifically 24.5%, whereas full-time workers experienced 12.9% unemployment rate in the same month. Also, another factor was that businesses had to suffer in terms of profit loss and shutdown almost. We also have taken the fact that, as I stated earlier, medical resources were being depleted with the rise of cases and the lack of people following the mandate of mask wearing, social distancing, quarantining when sick. Like, it's not that hard to wear a mask, nor is it hard to at least stay 6 feet apart from someone. I don't understand what's the big deal about that. Now, when it comes to solutions, though, if the federal government stepped in way earlier, and enforced social distancing, quarantine, and masks, then at least part of the problem would have been mitigated. And also, if the COVID bill passed under the Biden administration currently was passed way earlier during Trump's administration, we would have seen possibly a faster rate of cases decreasing. Now, I'm going to give you the people's view or approval rating specifically of how people thought Biden and Trump handled COVID-19 according to 538 and what their polls percentage were specifically as of March 14. When it came to Trump, he at the end of his term, he came to about 38.9% approval rating on how he handled COVID-19, whereas Biden currently came out with a 61.2% approval. Now, aside from that solution, if it were up to me, I'd honestly would make sure at least everyone is aware that they must social distance and wear masks, as well as quarantine if you're sick. I'd spread awareness as well of the hardworking individuals in healthcare facilities nationally who are doing their best with the resources they have to fight this virus, even internationally too, because doctors, nurses alone are working day in, day out, sometimes without sleep, taking care of the people who are infected, or at least doing the best they can. If we want to go back to normal, honestly, normal isn't something that we'll be experiencing for a while. If we want to see our loved ones, friends, coworkers, etc., then we have to take action and precaution immediately and accordingly so we can get back to what we were doing before. Now, in today's speech, I spoke about the causes, effects that this pandemic has had. I also provided some possible solutions that could have worked for this pandemic. To recap, The US really could have taken this current pandemic more seriously than it did. Not enough priority was taken to make sure people social distance, wear masks, and quarantine. The amount of emotional and physical damage to not only the country, but the people is unreasonable. From people losing jobs, they also lost loved ones, and so much more. For the next situation that arises, we must not delay and act accordingly. In today's society, everything won't be perfect. Problems will arise, and while some will just, slowly fall off, if we're going to continue to boast about how great our country performs under situations like pandemics, then we must perform just as strong and bold. We cannot predict all of the future, but the best we can do is prepare and learn from past mistakes. Thank you.